Johnny Furphy has declared for the NBA draft while still maintaining his college eligibility. What does this do for the Hawks for this upcoming season, if he stays or if he should go? Let's talk about it.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. Here to talk some KU basketball as we're a couple weeks into the offseason now. And obviously, if you haven't yet, if you haven't gone to check out our last couple episodes, we've got the episode talking about Zeke Mayo signing here. We've got the episode on Riley Kugel. There's a lot of stuff to get into, which we're going to talk about Johnny Furphy here tonight. But first, make sure you go check us out on Spotify. You can also check us out over here on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe right now. On our way to 500 subscribers, would greatly appreciate your support in getting us there, because there's a lot of fun stuff coming up on the pod over the next couple months that you guys don't want to miss out on. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. You can also hit us up on any of our social medias, of course, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. So Johnny Furphy has declared for the NBA draft, and I'm going to pull up here, if you're watching here on YouTube, and read his official statement coming from him and Kansas Athletics before we dive into the possible consequences, good or bad, of this decision. So here you go. I am excited to announce that I am declaring for the 2024 draft while maintaining my college eligibility. I am so grateful to the coach self and the whole team at KU for the opportunity they gave me to be a part of this incredible program. From moving into a new country to participating in an NCAA tournament, this year has flown by faster than I could have ever imagined. I love my teammates, and I'm so proud of everything we accomplished this season. Everyone at Kansas has made me feel right at home. What I have learned at Kansas has changed the way I think about basketball, and no matter what happens from here, I'll always be a Jayhawk. Thank you, and rock chalk. So,
Chalk.
Furphy has declared. We all expected this to happen at some point. A guy as talented as he is, with the potential that he's got, should at least be testing the waters. I know when this broke, the three of us were talking back and forth of, does that mean he's gone? Does that mean he's just testing? I completely misread it the first time. I didn't see the part that he said maintain college eligibility, so I took it as he's gone. But he is leaving that eligibility open. And so just a couple clerical things for you guys to know what's coming up. The deadline to declare for the NBA draft is coming up here on April 27th. College players and international players and G League players, all those guys that are eligible for the draft, must declare by the 27th. So no surprise that a week and a half out that this decision comes. Then the NBA draft combine happens in the middle of May 13th through 19th, which is where most of these guys that are participating in the combine will get information as far as where teams might have them projected. And then they'll have a couple, individual team workouts here and there. And then the draft itself is June 26th. And June 27th, this is that weird year where they're doing it 2 nights in a row. But the June 16th date is the deadline for players that have entered to step out of the draft and return back to college. So Furphy's got a little over a month and a half here to go get whatever information he can to kind of best decide what is right for him. So we're going to get into that. Obviously, we want to get your guys' reactions to the declaration itself. And then, of course, we'll get into what does that mean for Kansas? How many scholarships do they have available? How does that impact the roster moving forward? Could he come back? Should he come back? All of that I want to get into. But first off, guys, just initial reactions on the decision. Did it surprise you at all? Was it expected? What do you think?
Yeah, not shocked at all. I mean, this was a no-brainer to at least test the waters, right? We know that he can come back if he wants to. We know that Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks, certainly the Kansas fan base, would welcome him back, maybe with a little bit of an asterisk, because we are doing some major recruiting. And while we would always welcome him back, man, if that means getting the next guy up from the transfer portal, it might be worth it for him to go. Now, but that's all that being said, I love Johnny Furphy. I love him as a person. I love him as a player. I'd love to have him back. I think what's best for him is to stay in the draft and develop in the NBA. His draft stock can absolutely skyrocket if he came back. Don't get me wrong, but man, I mean, whether it's this year or next year, he's gone after this year or next year. He's not staying a third year. So, love the kid, and I wish him the best.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. It wasn't a shock when you have a player that's obviously the moment he's coming in, he's going to be on scouts' radars. I don't think it's surprising, and quite frankly, I think it's obviously a good idea to, at the very least, test the waters, see how things are looking for him as a potential draft pick. This year's draft is predicted to be considerably weak. That's the consensus among analysts and pros and all that. So this might be his chance to go towards the lottery or a higher pick in the first round. So you have to weigh that out. There's a lot of things that you want to keep in mind because there's things he has to consider financially. There's things he has to consider in terms of development as a player. So there's a couple different avenues he needs to look at, but I definitely think testing the waters at the very least is the best first decision to make.
Yeah, no surprise. Bill Self is always one that talks about the guys that have potential NBA status. They should always go test the waters. This is nothing new. We've seen this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years in a row now where guys that we'd love to have come back go out and test the waters to get information. Kevin McClure last year was a very late addition back to the roster, but went through the same thing for 2 years in a row, went to get what information he could. Furphy, I think, is an interesting case for a lot of reasons. One, he had that late start to the year where he didn't really get any playing time, got to get in the swing of things, had the shin splints. But once he got some playing time, we definitely saw the potential, the scoring threat he could be, the shooting threat he could be. He started out pretty hot and, was quickly sliding up draft boards to the point where us as KU fans are going, this guy's one and done. There's no way he comes back. He at one point was a mid to high lottery pick, as I saw him in draft mocks as high as 8 to 10. Also, that was when Kevin was at his peak. So you had 2 KU guys in the potential lottery. Season didn't quite go as well. Furphy ended up slowing down towards the end there, so his stock has slipped a lot. But he wraps up his freshman season at Kansas, averaging 9 points a game. His shooting splits, 47% from the floor, 35% from three, and 76% from the free throw line. So he definitely cooled off because I think he was shooting about 43 to 45% for a while, especially early on in Big 12 play, and then it just kind of plummeted. But he's a 6'8", long-armed, 200-pound wing. Played a little bit of the 3, a little bit of the 4, a little bit of the 2 here. Right now, I think he's got a really wide range, honestly, when it comes to mock drafts. I've seen him as high now as 16, 17, 18, as low as the upper 30s. So he's got a very, very wide range, but he's probably one of the 5 best shooters in this draft. Again, this draft, like Spencer said, is not the strongest. He's also listed as the 5th best shooting guard prospect or wing guard in here behind Dalton Connect, Reed Shepard, Stevan Castle, and Jacoby Walter. And just in case you care about it, Kevin McCullough slots in at 9. So Kevin's still top 10 at his position. But what is that position? NBA-wise, he's probably going to be that kind of 3-and-D type prospect, the elite shooter and scorer. He's got the size and the athleticism. Obviously, we know the defense was a struggle for a while, and it's going to get better as the more he plays against top-level competition. But yeah, no shock. The thoughts that I have of should he stay or should he go, let's go there first, and then we'll talk about how it impacts Kansas. One of the biggest things that I think fans maybe don't realize or understand is because he's from Australia and he's not a United States citizen, as of right now, to my knowledge, unless anybody else has found evidence against this, he cannot earn any NIL money because that's not how visas work in this case. So that's probably a big deciding factor because if he can get paid to go play right now, whether it's in the draft or go back overseas, why not? So I think that's definitely a big indication as to why he would lean the draft, especially if he can get a guaranteed contract. The trouble there with the draft is guys outside of, I can't remember I know it's first round picks for sure, but guys, I think like outside of the top 34, 35 picks, usually their contracts are non-guaranteed. So even if a team promises to pick you up in the second round, your contract's not guaranteed. So there's no guarantee you're going to get paid. And if you do get paid, you're getting paid a little bit. So that could be a big factor. But but we also know he's very new to his game. He's very young, very raw, really capable shooter, but there's still plenty of areas that we could see him improve on. But yeah, I'm leaning as a non-KU fan for a moment, if I can be objective here, because as a KU fan, obviously want him back. But it feels like if you're Johnny, you can go get paid and you can get that first round guarantee, that you should go take it. Because if you can get the guaranteed contract, go. He'll develop at his own pace in the NBA, where it's his professional job, where he's getting paid every day. That's where I'm leaning currently. How are you guys feeling about should he stay or should he go? Because I think we could sit here and argue that he should come back and why he should come back. But if you look at it, again, as a non-KU fan for a moment, objectively, what would you guys do in this situation?
It just bothers me so much that he would go simply because of money. We're not saying that's what he's thinking about, but young NBA prospects typically, more often than not, probably have that on their mind. Let's just be honest. They're probably thinking about it. It's a big consideration factor, but man, it wasn't that long ago when kids were not making money playing for their college, and they were developing and they were improving upon their game. They get the notes that they got from the NBA guys and the scouts and everything when they're testing the waters. They get those notes and they come back, they work on what they need to work on, and then there we go. I mean, they have all the tools at their disposal to drastically improve their draft stock the next year. And we've seen guys take massive leaps coming back from their freshman year into their sophomore year. I mean, he is poised and ready to come into a second year type of situation at Kansas and just dominate and fight for being our leading scorer. But man, it just bothers me that money is part of that equation, because man, he can really, if he thinks about it, he can improve his stock so much that the guaranteed money exponentially increases if he comes back a year. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think NIL, I think it'd be tough. You're watching your teammates get paid and you're not getting paid. I mean, it's got to hurt your feelings a little bit. I would hurt mine.
There's got to be a lawyer out there somewhere that can figure out if there's a way that they can move stuff around legally for him to get paid. But obviously his ceiling is very high. Even currently, again, he's one of the top rated shooters in the draft. And we know how much the NBA values, not just potential, but capable shooting. But I think he's also a good case where you can see his draft stock could drastically improve coming back here. Not that next year's draft class is super weak, but supposedly the next draft class isn't quite as strong either as some other ones in the past. So he's a guy that could clearly improve his stock coming back and getting better. But Spencer, what's your take on where he sits currently? Do you think he would be better off going in the draft, sticking in the draft, or do you think he's better off coming back for a second year?
Yeah, if I'm him, I stick in the NBA. I have gone back and forth on it a little bit. The NIL deal sucks, and you were even hearing the TV crew talk about it with Zach Edey during the national title game, how he's not really made a cent on NIL because of the whole foreign rules thing. So that's number one, just a huge bummer. But setting aside the financial part of it, from a development standpoint, I always think that I think any one and done player could benefit from another year in college. Even the most talented, even the most pro ready would probably get better by staying another year in college. But to me, the way I look at it is, okay, yeah, you have what's considered a weak draft. You're probably going to go borderline lottery in that 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th round, selection. My thing is, let's say he stays in college and he gets hurt. And then he has, you're going from a borderline lottery guy to a guy that now has an injury concern. I'm talking like an ACL or a meniscus or something like that. You now have a guy whose long-term athletic ability gets hindered. Maybe next year's draft is stronger. And so now you're looking at, okay, am I a second-round pick? And now my career earnings just tank, absolutely tank, because he's going to develop in the NBA. He's probably going to be a two-way guy or playing the G League a little bit, or be a role player coming right off the bat. He's going to develop in the league. He's going to be with an NBA shooting coach that can help him with mechanics. He's going to be with an NBA strength trainer that's going to help him fill out his frame. I think the risk of coming back to college exponentially outweighs the benefit of it because he's going to get that development in the first year anyway. And
Yes.
now this is objectively speaking.
Yeah.
I'd love for him to come back. He's versatile. He's a great shooter. He's got defensive potential. I like Johnny Furphy. I want him to come back. I just think if it was me, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, and we sat here last year and kind of went over the same stuff about Grady Dick. Obviously the fans wanted him to come back for a second season because they thought he was great, but then had moments where he disappeared because he was face guarded. But I think this situation's similar. I think Grady has the higher short-term ceiling, so it made more sense for him as basically a guaranteed lottery pick, whereas Furphy's not a guaranteed lottery pick. I know their game is similar. That's one of the comparisons he's drawn as far as NBA comparisons. Grady's obviously a little bit better at creating his own shot, better off the dribble, better attacking, where Furphy's still very, very raw to that. I mean, we saw his highlight tapes coming out of Australia, and the guy's really athletic. He can get his own shot. We just didn't see a lot of it here this last year against better competition, against better defensive teams, where he struggled with the ball in his hands. Spot-up shooter, fantastic. Fast break transition game, awesome, but struggled with the ISO or the half court sets where he had to move without the ball or create his own shot off the dribble. So let's just assume for a moment here that he does come back. What would you guys like to see him improve on that could increase his draft stock? And what do you think the ceiling of his game and KU as a whole would be this year if he comes back with the current roster we have? I know there's a lot of questions yet to still fill in the roster, but if he came back, what would a sophomore season Furphy look like or should look like?
Well, I think first off, you're looking at his defense. I mean, there was a long stretch where I was critical of Johnny Furphy. Specifically, I mean, when he was on defense, he would just let people blow by him. I mean, and he would often foul, and it was hard for him to defend without fouling. And it's frustrating, but you take those blows when he's making the shots that he was making. So just kind of have to pick your poison. But I think defensively we start. I would love to see him just get a little bit better with his ISO game too. There's a lot of ISO game in the NBA, so he's gonna want to show the prospects, the scouts that he has that ability. I think he does. Certainly next year he would have a lot of opportunities to be that guy for us. So those are the two main things for me.
Spencer, you were on mute, my bud.
My AirPods died.
There you go.
Okay, I had to call an audible there. So like I said, I'd love to have Furphy back because of the versatility he offers the lineup. And for me, the steps I'd like to see is obviously on the defensive end, which I think he can do. He's got the tools to make those jumps defensively. I'd like to see, him develop some of that off the dribble game. And he doesn't have to be, call an ISO and, go get a butt. You don't have to be Kyrie Irving or anything like that. But, just develop kind of like similar steps that we saw Ochai develop throughout his KU career. Get a pump fake, quick first step to the basket, get a pump fake, 2 dribbles in, 18-footer, maybe be able to, go into a triple threat and try to, drive past somebody. I'd like to see him at least be able to create his own shot a little bit. And I think he'll probably take that step in the collegiate level a little bit quicker than the NBA. That would be, I'll say that's one good argument, that he'll develop his offensive game a little bit quicker in college as opposed to the NBA, since he's going to be going up against much, quicker defenders. That's what I'd like to see. And I think he's more than capable of making those jumps. So it'd be cool to have him back for sure.
Yeah. If you look at some of his draft rankings and profiles and whatnot, obviously the upside is his shooting capability. Again, one of the best 3-point shooters and spot-up shooters in the draft. Really good off the ball, smart cutter, like we said, great in transition, can create space without the ball for himself. Pretty solid athlete, again, at 6'8". We saw him attack the rim quite a bit off ball, going after rebounds. So a guy that still averaged about 5-6 rebounds. There were some games this year where he had 8 to 10 rebounds because he was flying in there with that athleticism and height to go get the ball. But again, some of the downsides that scouts have thrown out there is he's almost exclusively played off the ball, so we're not sure what he's capable of with the ball in his hands. Small sample size given the inconsistent start to the season and minutes. What can he do with the ball in his hands? Can he create his shot off the dribble? Can he create a little bit of a dribble drive game? So obviously those are the things that he would improve on. I think his ceiling, if he comes back, with the way that we're structured right now, again, we don't know every piece, but more than likely Hunter's back, so it's going to be a similar look. Obviously, the additions of Kugel and Zeke Mayo really add a lot of more floor spacing shooters and shot creators, which that could also play to Furphy's benefit because he might get more open looks. Zeke got a really good drive game where he could drive and dish. He's also got a nasty step back and ISO game to where he could draw a lot of attention to where if Furphy's moving off the ball really well, and Dwan's doing what he does facilitating, Furphy might even get even more looks. So I think his potential is really solid. He could be second leading scorer. There's a lot of podcasts out there and different guys that think he could be all Big 12 capable if he comes back. I think that definitely the ceiling is there and the potential is there. I'd love to see him back. I really think if he does come back with the way the team is constructed currently, I think we could see some similarities to that Final Four team with Devontae, Graham, and Svi and Malik, because you got multiple guys that can shoot the ball, multiple guys that can facilitate the offense, and then a couple knockdown shooters. And Furphy could kind of play that Svi role. So I think that's the ceiling. I think his potential is higher than what Grady Dick is and what Svi was at Kansas. Grady Dick had a pretty solid rookie year here in the NBA to finish it out. I think Johnny Furphy similar. Some other comparisons that he's drawn, a poor man's version of what Malik Monk is doing right now. So if Furphy gets to that point where he's hitting 3 to 5 threes a game, fantastic. We've seen a little bit of Gordon Hayward. He's not quite the shot creator that Gordon Hayward is, but he's the shooter. Obviously, you always get, anytime you have a 6'7" white guy that can shoot threes, you get the Kyle Korver, you get the Duncan Robinson. I think he is similar to Duncan Robinson, but more explosive. We've also seen a little bit of Grayson Allen, which, of course, KU fans, we can't stand the guy. But from an NBA perspective, he's turned into quite the nice 3-and-D guy. Furphy's NBA comparisons are tough, though, because there's just not enough tape on him, and there's not enough at Kansas of seeing what he's capable of outside of being that spot-up shooter. But if he leaves and stays in the draft, what's the impact you guys think that has on the roster currently versus who else KU could go? Because obviously Bill Self said in their banquet the other night that he knew, like, he basically anticipated this was going to happen with Furphy. And Bill Self's always the guy that tells him, hey, when you declare, go all in so that your mindset is right, so you're doing this right. And if you still come back, great. But he's basically said we're recruiting as if Furphy's gone, because that's the mentality they have to have just in case. They did the same thing with Kevin McCullough last year. They tried to go out and recruit anticipating Kevin not coming back. They were in on Arthur Kaluma, who basically would have filled that role. Obviously, they didn't get the guys they wanted to. Mackenzie Mbako doesn't transfer here, things like that. Kevin comes back. But Bill said we got to keep recruiting because there's still needs on this team to fill. So even with the additions of Zeke Mayo and Riley Kugel, obviously guys they're talking to right now, like Rylan Griffin, who should be visiting Kansas this weekend, and I am fully anticipating a commitment before Saturday. We've talked a little bit, AJ Storr out of Wisconsin. There's a lot of fans that are back and forth on great scorer, not the most efficient, not a great three-point shooter, but fantastic scorer. A couple other guys, Kobe Brea out of Dayton just put into the portal this morning. Excellent shooter. Probably the best shooter that's in the portal right now. And you still got a guy like Liam McNeely as a unsigned recruit. But there's a lot of question marks that are on this roster, and a lot of it could be determined based on what Furphy does. So what's the impact you guys think Furphy's decision will have on this roster should he stay in the draft?
You know what? I think, well, you mentioned it, and we've talked about it in other podcasts, but it almost seems like Liam McNeely is just waiting to see what Johnny Furphy is going to do. But before we hit record, we were also talking about how it's smart that he's just waiting in general, because as a kid coming out of college, a high-ranked recruit, I mean, he can look at the landscape and see where all the dominoes have fallen and make the best choice that's right for him. And I'm not sure if we are the right fit for Liam McNeely. I think if Furphy's gone, it's a wide open door for a guy like Rylan Griffin to sign with Kansas, and I would love, 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 love that signing.
For the record, I don't think Furphy's decision has any impact on Rylan Griffin. I think he is coming here. Bill Self wants him. Bill Self's going to get him. If Furphy comes back, that's just added bonus because now you've got 3 guys in your starting lineup that can shoot 3. So I don't think those two have any connection personally.
That makes sense. The reason I even say that though is because these recruits are also looking at our roster, and I don't know if maybe they don't care. Maybe Bill Self is telling them not to care about how many scholarships that we have or don't have. If they want to commit, they commit. Maybe that's the case. But if I was a recruit and I saw a roster with no scholarships available or one maybe scholarship that we know we still have to take a scholarship away between this year and next year. I mean, yes, we can open that up. That would kind of weigh on me a little bit. We have some guys coming in. Kugel. We have Zeke Mayo coming in. Are these guys that are going to potentially make other recruits like Rylan Griffin think, well, how many minutes am I really going to get? I mean, now I think there's room on this roster for all these guys to get tons of minutes and tons of playing time, but we got to convince them. And it's easier to convince them when a guy like Furphy says, okay, I am staying in the draft. And man, if
it
he
definitely
does,
opens up more minutes for sure.
We're getting a big name if he's gone. We're getting a huge name.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point because Self can say, hey, we're going to recruit as if you're not coming back. And Furphy can say, I'm going to go into the draft with the intention of staying in the draft. But the third party that can't have that mindset is the person that's trying to transfer here. They can't go just blindly accept the spot with the intention of, well, Furphy's not coming back, because in their minds, he might. He may test the waters. It's not what it's like. I mean, you get these upperclassmen guys. I mean, these guys are trying to go to the league. They're trying to, have a junior, senior year, whatever, where they get playing time. They can be on a, more nationally televised games, be in a blue blood program, be in a program that's developed a lot of NBA guys. So in my head, it's like, well, I'm trying to do that. But if I come back and there's, the minutes are getting chopped up because a guy that turned down being a lottery pick is coming down. That's going to take minutes from me. That's going to take a roster spot from me. So I think that if Furphy finalizes that decision, kind of like you said, we are going to get a big name if he does decide to not go. So I think as KU fans and the coaching staff, I'm sure what they're weighing is, do we take this guy that has a year under his belt in this system with his coaching staff, or do we take a guy that maybe has a skill set that's more suitable to what we need? I mean, Furphy, like we said, is a great spot up shooter, great off the ball, defensive, potential. Would we rather have the potential there to maybe be a better fit, or do we want a guy that can be, a 3-level scorer that can create his own shot even if the efficiency drops? So that's what I think everyone's got to weigh.
I don't think either outcome is bad, too.
No,
because
that's good.
I mean,
this is a great problem to have.
Yeah,
it really is, because he's gonna come back and he's going to dominate. I mean, many times, like I said, how many times have we seen a guy come in year 2 and be exponentially better than he was as a freshman? KJ Adams. It can be Devontae Graham-esque. I mean, Devontae Graham's second year was looking like a senior veteran. Okay. And he was only in his second year, and we got him for another 2 years after that. It was beautiful. Love you, Devontae. He could be just that. I mean, now, if he comes back, great. We'll make it work. If he leaves, great. We'll make it work because we're getting some big names.
Yeah, that's why I'm not too worried one way or the other. I wasn't going to include it in this episode because we were thinking about talking this separately, but I want to throw somewhat of a hot take out there.
Oh, no.
And I hope I don't get crushed for this in the comments or anywhere else.
Crush him.
If Furphy does come back and we get Rylan Griffin and we have, these 3 to 4 guys that can shoot the lights out potentially and create their own shots, I am kind of leaning towards saying goodbye Hunter Dickinson. Hello, KJ, back at the 5, rotating with Flory Badunga and going athleticism and speed. and sacrificing height because Hunter's already not a great post presence defensively. Now he can, I mean, he's athletic enough that he can play 35 minutes a night, but I would rather see us go run and gun with Furphy back at the 4 spot, sacrifice a little bit of defense, but be capable of putting up 90 a night. So there's my, I guess, hot take on that. Spencer, thumbs up. So Spencer, he approves.
That was an accident. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was a trap.
But yeah, that's my hot take. Again, I'm not saying I wouldn't take Hunter back because I absolutely would. But there is a part of me as a non-KU fan for a moment, again, just trying to look at how the game would play out watching this team of athletic wings and guards. That would fit better with a player that is more of a rim runner like a KJ and a Flory than a traditional, I need 15 touches a night in the paint, 7'2" guy that can't defend. So that's my.
It solves
a
couple problems. Like that solves a couple problems. One, it makes KJ a bona fide starter. I mean, and now I say that because there's a huge sector of KU Twitter plus me. I'm in it. I'm on the camp. I want KJ to come off the bench.
If Hunter's back, yes, I'm right there with you. They
that doesn't mean
cannot play that much overlap this year. There's just no way.
Yeah, that doesn't mean
unless KJ develops a good jumper.
Like he won't get a significant minute decrease. Honestly, he'll be more efficient coming off the bench. He'll be the spark plug we need. I mean, I love KJ. He's my favorite player on the team. I love him. But yeah, to make it work, to make the offense more cohesive, I think come off the bench. But this allows him to remain in the starting lineup for his final season, and it makes me happy as a fan because I get to see more KJ. But yeah, I think I'd take that scenario if we have second half of this season Hunter for all of next season, if that makes sense. Hunter was
because first half of the season, Hunter, oh my gosh, was fantastic.
It was amazing.
Second half, he had a lot of frustration. Even when he was still putting up 20 and 12, you could just tell it just didn't fit. And maybe a lot of that's just because we didn't have Kevin, and that's a large chunk of the offense. He did look tired at the end of the year. I just feel like with that much offensive shot creation capability, speed, and athleticism, we could run similar to how Alabama played in the sense of more athletic 5-man that might not be your dominant, 6'10" to 6'11", 250-pound guy, but a guy who's athletic enough, or like what Houston did with Juwan Roberts this year. Not your typical big guy, about 6'7", 6'8", but could run the floor, could switch defensively, especially on those ball screens, and be kind of that rim runner. Because the way they're going to be spreading the floor this year, you just need a guy that can just run around and set screens and be a dump off. Kind of like, again, this didn't work out that well, but when they would bring Ernest Uday in and KJ would go to the bench, Ernest would just go out there, set picks, and dive to the basket looking for a lob. Now, obviously, that did not work out very well in the long run, and he's not here. He's not here for a reason. He's also didn't have a good year at TCU for a reason. But anyway, my point is you have that capability when you have an athletic backcourt and wings that are interchangeable. So if Furphy comes back and he can continue to develop off the dribble and with the ball in his hand and attack, and you've got these guys that can all interchange. I mean, Riley Kugel, Zeke Mayo can play 1 through 3. Zeke's he doesn't have the size for the 3, but he's athletic. You get a guy like Rylan Griffin who can come in and shoot the lights out. You go after a guy like Kobe Bray, who's probably one of the best 3-point shooters in the country, shot almost 50% from the 3-point line this last year. I'll take that. Let's wrap up with this, though. I'm going to give you a couple scenarios. You guys are going to tell me Furphy or whatever player I mentioned, which you would rather have. Again, I am going to assume Rylan Griffin signs no matter what, but first one here is Rylan Griffin or Johnny Furphy.
Dude, Griffin.
Yeah,
is it the experience? Because he's
got
2 years already.
Yeah. I mean, he's a stud. He's a stud, and he fits perfectly into what we are trying to do. I think he can pick up right where Furphy left off. And, we talk about wanting guys. Here's the problem. We talk about how good Bill Self does with teams that are guys that have been around and, how good are we when we return 4 starters? We always like make it to the Final Four or something. We would love to have Furphy back for that reason. Here's the deal. Griffin is like the asterisk, the walking asterisk that is like the exception to the rule because he's that good of a shooter. And he's just that good of like his role and what he did for Alabama is exactly what we would want him to do to fix our shooting woes from last season.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I agree.
I would like let's just get both. But yeah, if you had to pick, I think I'd be okay with Griffin again because of that experience. He's got the shot capabilities that Furphy has, just a little bit more experience, and then you have a different type of guy there. Now that would really change things for the 4 spot. Maybe you go back to KJ starting at the 4 again. But anyway, next one: Johnny Furphy or AJ Storr.
Furphy.
Spencer, take this one. Yeah,
I'll take Furphy on that.
I was like, don't get it wrong, Spencer.
Yeah, I need the efficiency. I need a guy that, again, I will sacrifice shot creation for better spacing. That's what I'll do. And real quick, I'm going to go back to your Hunter Dickinson point. To play a little bit of devil's advocate here, we've never seen Hunter Dickinson play in a Kansas uniform with good spacing. So that might look a little bit better with a new and improved roster around him. So yeah, in that scenario, I'm taking Furphy, man.
I can get on board with that. Again, I think AJ Storr is an incredible scorer. He's a 3-level scorer.
Yeah.
But it would be too much like the Caleb Love conversation last year of, hey, the guy could go off for 25, but he could also go 4 of 17, and that's just inefficient. So he'd be a little bit more probably physical player than Furphy, and maybe better defensively just with his experience. But I think again with the way the roster is constructed, I think Furphy would fit in better because he wouldn't have to have the ball in his hands as much as a guy like Storr might. Another one, I know you guys probably are not that familiar with him, but the guy I mentioned, Kobe Bray out of Dayton, shot about 6 attempts a game from 3, one of the purest, best three-point shooters in the country. Again, on 200 attempts, I think he shot like 198 attempts or something. If he would have made it to 200 attempts at his current rate, he would have shot 50% from the three-point line. 6'6" wing, he's got the size, decently athletic, good experience, can shoot lights out. Him or Johnny Furphy with, again, the team we have already.
I'm taking. I'm. That's tough. That's really tough. I'm probably taking Kobe.
I'm taking Kobe. Yeah. Give me the guaranteed shooting.
It sounds to me like a lateral move. I mean, we don't know. I mean, Furphy could make a jump in efficiency too.
True, and Nick Timberlake was one of the best 3-point shooters, and look what happened.
Yeah, and again, I go back to this. This is big in my mind. Furphy's got a year in this system with these coaches, with everything, man. So I don't know. And like to your point, Keegan, I'm not the most familiar with the guy, and it sounds like he's very recent on the transfer portal. But if we're just talking about one spot-up shooter to another, I kind of want to stick with the one we've had.
The one that's already here.
To allow him to develop a little bit.
I also agree with that too. Also from the sentiment of Furphy's a little bit taller, little bit more size. So I think in this scenario, it's more likely that you feel comfortable with Furphy playing the 4 over one of these other guys that's a spot-up shooter that might not be a great defensive guy. So yeah, I would take Kobe on this team for sure as a shooter. But I think I can agree with you there in the sense of give me the guy that's already been here a year. Last one on here. And I think there's a lot of overlap on these two players. Play style a little different, but this guy's decision is going to be very dependent upon what Furphy does, and that is Johnny Furphy versus Liam McNeely. Both 6'8", 6'9". McNeely's got a little bit more on his frame than Furphy, but similar play style.
No, I'm repping Furphy
Take
here.
Furphy?
Furphy is why. And whenever I'm going up against the high guy coming out of high school, they need time to develop. They're going to be rough to start the season. I'm sticking with Furphy at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll go with that too. I'm all for Furphy coming back. I just don't feel confident it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of these other targets KU's going after suggest that they want to replace what Furphy could do with someone that's more experienced and perfect for that role. So that's where I'm leaning.
And it lets Furphy do his thing in the NBA. It lets him go and make some money.
Hey, and he's also going to potentially play for his home country this summer in the FIBA competition, Summer Olympics. So
Yep.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how, I don't quite understand the rules there of if that messes up anything. I don't know. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, let's wrap up there because the other things that might come out as a fall, we've already seen this on Instagram earlier today, that LeBaron Philon, the incoming freshman recruit, is potentially looking at opening up his recruitment. Don't know if that's his camp. Don't know if that's Bill Self saying, hey, if we get this guy, you're not playing at all this year. So maybe you go somewhere else. I don't know. Again, we're not going to sit here too long and talk on that. El Marco's still here. I think I'd rather have El Marco than LeBaron, again, just for the same reason. El Marco's been here a year, and Self feels very confident that year 2 El Marco is going to be fantastic. So I'll give you that. But that is one potential side consequence is one of these other guys, him, Jamari McDowell, Raquise Passmore, another incoming freshman, could transfer out, or a guy like Zach Clements, who we haven't talked about either. So that's kind of the consequence of the way the stuff goes. But yeah, we'll get into some more of that offseason talk here. Again, a lot of other stuff coming up. We got a lot of fun guests waiting in the wings, lined up for some fun episodes. So plenty more KU basketball talk to get into. We've also got NFL draft is coming up in about a week. So we'll have a little bit Chiefs talk there with CJ and Chris. So make sure you guys are checking us out over on Spotify. If you're listening to us on the go, thank you so much. Hit that follow button. If you're watching over here on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so this video can be found by more Jayhawk fans. And make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are looking to surpass that 500 mark. We're getting close. We're about 30 subscribers away and would love if you guys could help us out with that one. So like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, get your friends to like it, get 4 or 5 of you to go like it, and we'll get there overnight. But that will wrap up things on this episode. Until next time, as always, rock chalk.
Rock chalk.
Rock chalk.